All right, welcome everyone. This is the second attempt at this because we had a display problem. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover with you the controls in actions in the Swift Fundamental 2.9. What we're going to cover, we're going to talk about the common controls. We will cover, for example, the buttons. We will associate actions with these buttons, set some of the properties of these buttons. We will cover switches. We will cover sliders. We will cover text fields, actions and outlets. We'll discuss those. And the last thing we will cover in this book is the gestures. All right. So let's get started. So I'm going to create a new project. And it's an iOS app. We're going to call it Common Control 2. Okay. And then it is a storyboard. We're going to use the storyboard. It's a Swift language. And we're going to use the UI, the lifecycle UIKit app delegate. When we click on next, create, and this is, we already have the storyboard. We're going to be dealing with the storyboard and the view controller that comes with the storyboard. All right, so this is my storyboard. Now, how do we add controls to this, to the view controller or to the screen? Now, controls are very, very important in app development, and it depends on what you want to do within your app. You can select the proper control for it. So the basic control is a button. We want to do some action, so we add a button to the screen. How do we add a button? You simply click on the plus here and show the library, and from the library you have a button. We drag this button and add it to the screen. Now buttons, you can set the attributes of these controls using the attribute inspector. So here, if we want to change the attribute of this button, we click on select that button, we select the attribute inspector. The first basic thing that we can change, for example, is the title. So we're going to say, here we're going to say greeting, all right? You hit enter, now it changes the title of that button to greeting. You can change the font if you want to make it bigger, so you can make it bigger. You can change the background color if you want. In the view, you can change the background color of that button. So I'm going to change the background color to something yellow or orange. All right. So now I have a basic button, but this button is just a display. It doesn't do you anything. It doesn't do anything. So what I want to do is that I want to tie it to an action. When I tap on that button, I want to do something. We want to display greeting. So what you can do with this, you can say simply click on this shortcut here, adjust editor options. One of the options here is that you show assistant. When you click on this, what you're seeing, let me just hide these panels so we have more room to work with. What you are seeing here is that you're seeing the class that is associated with this view controller. What is a class? A custom class is the Swift class, the controller that controls your view. So now if I want to do any action, I need to create this action in this Swift class. How do I know which Swift class is associated with the view controller? You select this view controller, you show the attribute identity inspector here. From the identity inspector, you see that this is the class name tied to this view controller. So now if I want to modify the code for this view controller, I need to modify this class. All right. And because it's already linked, I don't have to do anything, just simply drag and drop those controls into the Swift class. So if I want to add an action, I right click if I'm using a mouse, or control and drag, and then I can add this action anywhere outside a function, inside the class, but outside a function. So I can add it to the end. If this is what I like to do, I'll add it to the end. And then notice it says it's an action for the connection type. And this is the object, and then the name that you want. So if I say button greeting, this will be the name of the function that we are creating, or the action that we're creating, and the type of action that you're selecting. So what is the type of action? The default is tap up inside, but you can select any of those depending on your application and what you're trying to do. Another one, touch up outside, for example, or value change. We will use the value change in a minute. All right. So the other thing that you could do with this is that you can say what type of parameter you're passing to this action. You can select any, or you can specify the type that you are connecting. For example, if it's a button, you can select UI button. Why? If I want to get something from the UI button, for example, I want to change the attribute of that button or get a value from that button, you can select the type UI button. We will do that in the next example. And now you click on control, connect. Now what happens is that I just created a connection for that button, an action for that button. So every time I click on it or tap on it, it will actually call this function here. So now if I say print greeting, every time I click on this or tap this, it will show this message in the console, print a greeting. All right, it says hello there. Now I'm gonna do another one quickly, which is the switches. All right, what is a switch? Again, a switch is allow you to toggle on and off. Are you a student or not? All right, are you a citizen or not? Are you a resident or not? So questions like this, you can use switches for, right? So if I go on here, again, to add a switch, click show the library, and switch is here. I'm gonna drag it and drop it here. I'm going to add a label as well. And then this label is gonna say, are you a student or not? All right. And then we set the attribute of that label that says student. All right. And then the student, it will be yes or no. And let's make it a little bit bigger if you want, so it will look okay in the recording. Now, for the switch, I want, when I create, you can create an outlet or an action for a switch. If it's an action, that means it will fire whenever you change the value. So for example, if I right click, drag, and this is, I'm gonna say switch student. It's okay. So switch student, and then the type, because I want to get the value of what the user has selected, whether it is on or off. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the type to UI switch. And notice the action is what here now? It's value change. It's not tap inside. Xcode is smart enough. It knows that you are using a switch. That means that you want to check if it changed the value or not. So if I click on connect, now we have another action. Okay, let me hide that. And in this action, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say if sender is the control that sent you that action. So in this case, the control that sent me the action is what? The UI switch, that switch that we specify on the screen. So this switch is the sender, right? And it's type UI switch. In here, I can say if sender dot is on, I can print, say, print you are a student. Otherwise, print, we can't wait until you join us. Okay. So now what happens? Every time I toggle on, if I turn it on, if it's green, this will be on and this will be called. Otherwise, if you turn it off, this will be called. All right. Let's test it and see what happens. So now if I click on select the device and let's select Max iPhone 12 Pro. And let's run it. It'll take a little bit of time until the simulator is fired up. Here is the simulator. And if I click on the button, it should say hello there. Or if I press on the button, it'll say hello there. If I toggle on the switch, on or off, it depending on what value do you have. If it's on, it will say you're a student. If you turn it off, it will say we can't wait until you join us. All right. Let's pause recording while this is running. Here it is. So what happens now, if I click on this, you'll notice it says hello there every time. Hello there, greeting, hello there, hello there. And if you turn it off, it says we cannot wait until you are until you join us. If I turn it on, it says you are a student. Is that clear? Yeah. So that is what we covered with the buttons and the switches. Now let's take a look at another control. Another control that is very useful, very helpful is sliders. A slider, you allow the user to select a value from a particular range. All right. So you can specify that range yourself. So anytime, when would you use it? Anytime you have an ad that require the user to, for example, increase or decrease the volume, or to select a particular value between a range, then this would be a good candidate instead of having the user to type it. All right. So what do we do with the slider? If I select, if I go to our project again, and if I click on the plus, one of the options here is control. Okay, what happened? Oh, because I okay, in the wrong screen. So now if I click on this, I can have a slider. And a slider, just the name as the name suggests, it looks like something that you can slide back and forth. And let me close this and work with the slider for a minute. Now, what kind of attribute can you set? Let me hide this as well. What kind of attribute can you set with this slider? So if I show the attribute for the slider, you'll notice that you have a value, the current value. You also have the minimum value and the top value. So if I want to give the user to select a range between 1 and 10, what can you do? So you can say here, you can say 1, and here it's 10, the maximum value. And you want to start somewhere in the middle. So the middle of 1 and 10 is 5. So I will put 5 in here. All right. Now, you can change the colors of these things instead of just blue, the default color. So if you go to here, and then I think there is a tinted color. Here, do you see that? If I want the green, now it has a green color. So when I run it, it will have a green color, all right? Now, just like the switch, you could also tie an action with the slider. So how do we do it? Again, you show the assistant. From the assistant, you drag and drop, or control and drag an action for the slider. So now if I say slider changed, it's an action, value change again. All right. And then you click Again, I want the type here. I want the type to be the slider. Why do I want it to be the slider, UI slider? Because I want to get the value that the user has selected. All right. So if I click on connect and I'm done with this, let's close this. Let's go back to just view the class here. So if I go to the project navigator, go to the class, here is my class, and here is the function for the slider. All right. To show you what happens every time you change the value, it will call this action. So if I say print slider dot value, or not sender dot value, what will happen? It will print the value that you've selected as you change the slider. So if I run it again, let's see what happens. So notice, as you change it, it changes the value at the bottom. So now you can take this value and know what the user has selected. All right. Now you can do additional setup for this slider. Let's take a look at the slider again. Here's my slider, and here is the minimum. It should have said, actually, it should have been in the middle, by the way, and I don't know why. All right, it doesn't. You could specify a minimum image and maximum image if you want. I don't know if we have those. Do we have a numbers listed? We don't have them. Anyway, we'll skip that part for now. Okay, so but that is funny because it should have said 5. That should have been displayed in the middle of the screen. It should have not been, the slider should have been in this middle of the screen. All right, should have not been on the left. Okay. All right, what else do we have in here? In addition to sliders, we did the slider. Here's how you print the value of the slider. Text field. Now, text field are very, very, very important to your apps. Why? Because most of the time, users are entering text values, username, password, registration, your address, whatever. So text fields are very, very important controls. What we're going to do with the text field, there's two values that, two actions that we're gonna control, write. One of them is keyboard return, key tapped, and text value changed. All right. And I'll show you the effect of both. All right. So if I go back to my screen, and let me hide the assistant and hide this, and let me hide the navigator here. And let's take a look and let's add a text field. I'll spend a little bit of time with text field so you understand them well. If I go back here and I add to the library text field, all right, there are a few attributes that we're going to look at. And here, we wanted the user to enter their name, for example. So when we click on greeting, we can display hello, the person name, whatever the person name is. So let's take a look at the text first of all, few of the properties. You can change the font, of course. Okay, you can make it bigger. You can change the alignment if you want. You want it to be in the middle, left or right. You can change the background. We're not going to mess with the background. And then we want to change, so the minimum font is say 17. But more importantly is these things here. First of all, first we have something called placeholder also as well. Where is the placeholder? Do you see this placeholder? Instead of having a label to tell the user what to type in here, you can put it in the placeholder. So it will appear in the text field in a gray color. So for example, if you can say enter your name here, your name. Now that will appear in the text field as a placeholder, right? Instead of having a label to do that. All right. The other thing that you can do with this, depending on the field, what kind of field do you want? So if I want to do keyboard type, if you select these, you can, to make it easier for the user to, instead of having to switch the keyboard based on what kind of data you're collecting, you set it in a way so when the user select it, when the user click on that field, it will show the proper keyboard. So the default one is the normal keyboard with the text fields, with the letters and the numbers on top, and then you can switch back and forth. And that's most of the time what we'll use if it's a text field. But sometimes it's a number, so you can use number pads. Sometimes it's a phone pad, so you can use the phone pad. Sometimes it has decimal numbers and punctuation, like commas and all of that, decimals. So you can use that. Or you can use it as an email. An email, it will display the @ sign for you. Or you use a URL. So URL, it will show the .com for you in the keyboard. So it depends on what you want to do. You can select the proper text field or keyboard type that appears. In addition to that, what you can do says autocorrect, for example. You can select some of these, city name, all that, but there is one here is called spell check, yes or no. So it will check what if your typing is wrong or right, right? Correction, you can say autocorrect, yes or no. So it will make suggestion for you as well. So this is, you could do all of this yourself. You can control it yourself, right? And display the proper keyboard to the users. Another one that is important here is that the return key. That means at the bottom, and I'll show you what that means. In the bottom of your keyboard, you can say go, you can say next, or you can say done, or any of those. So for example, if I say done, that means when I click on that button and I start typing, the done button will appear for me at the bottom. All right. You can, if it is a password, you can say it's a secure entry text. That means it will hide the text that you're entering. So it becomes like a password. All right. So you can do that with that. Right. Okay. So let's see what happens now. So if I do, let's do two actions. If we're going to add and show the assistant, we're going to do two actions. The one in the book there are two actions. Okay, one of them, if this is my view controller, is my text. I'm going to add another action for the text. An action, editing dead end. That means I'm done editing. If I click on this, you'll see that here, editing change, did end on exit, but this is the one that value changed, which means that you're changing the value. The one in the book, I think it was, what was the one in the book, which one they were using? Text changed. Okay, so the value is changed. So what I'm going to select in this action, I'm going to say value changed. All right. And we're going to call it text changed here. The sender, because I want to get the value from the text field, the sender is going to be, the type is going to be a UI text. All right. And then now simply click on connect. I'll come back to the other one. Let me just show you what's going to happen. Here's let me hide this. And then here is the action for that text field. What I can do here, I can say print sender.txt text field. All right, that text. Because I made a mistake. All right. All right. So now what happens? Let's leave that warning for now. When we cover casting and unwrap optional variable, we'll discuss this. Okay. So now if I run it, Watch what will happen. As I start typing in this text field, now if the keyboard is not showing, what you can do, you can always show the keyboard from here, keyboard, toggle keyboard. So now the keyboard will show. Notice this is done because I selected the return key is not done. If you want to do next, then you select next from the list. Now, if I start typing, and why it did not do it, it should have done it. Okay. Okay, maybe I did not select the right action. Let me check something. I'll come back. Okay. All right, so we did something silly. Instead of text change, we need to do editing change. So now I have this connection with this guy, and I want to end that connection. I want to stop that connection and make a new connection. And this happened with you all the time. So how do I finish a connection and start another, or connect it again, or cut a connection and connect it again? What you can do, if you right click here, you'll see all the actions and outlet if you have outlet connected. Right now, we have that button, that text changed here, which is editing text changed, right? So if I want to end this or delete this connection, what you do is just simply click on the X, and now that is gone. All right. You could do it again by clicking and dragging on this. You see that? Clicking and dragging on this. Now, it didn't do it. It didn't do editing. Do you see that? It says editing dead end. I don't want that. I want actually this guy, editing changed. So I'm gonna see if I can drag. Yeah, do you see that? If you drag it from here to the text field, to that function, it will work. So just simply drag to the function, and then it will establish that connection. I'll repeat it again. So if I want to end the connection for this guy, right click on it and delete it. Okay, so there's my connect, here are my events. And now I don't have any connection to any event or outlet. So if I already have the function defined before because I made a mistake. So I just want to simply link that function with the connection, with the new connection. So here, editing changed. I click on it, select it, and drag it to the function that I want to select to connect to. So now I have established a new connection, editing change. Now, if we run it now, you'll notice if I run it, if I start typing here, you'll see as you type, it will appear in here. All right? It will appear in here. As you type more, it will appear. Every time you type something, the text is changed and the value appears here. So that is editing. That is what? That is, if you write here, it's the action is editing change. Editing change. All right? Type. We have only 5 minutes for the other one. I will show you the other one, and then we'll stop for now. Next time, I'll show you the outlets and then show you the difference between outlet and actions quickly. And maybe if we have time, I'll show you today. What else can you do with that text field? So this is when you change. When you change the value. Notice what I'm going to do next. With the text field, you right-click, drag again here. Instead of it's an action, I'm going to say done typing, right? Or primary key change. I think it's primary key press. What does that mean? From the event type, you'll notice one of them is primary action trigger. What is that primary action trigger is? It's actually the button in that keyboard when you click on done, next, or whatsoever. So what I click on primary key pressed, again is going to be a send. It's going to be a UI text field, and again I'm going to do the connection. Now, what happens here? If I copy and paste this again, not the slider, the text field. And I'm going to add something else here. I'm going to put string interpolation. I'm going to say here, and we're going to say welcome, whatever name is welcome, whatever name you enter. So now what happens? When is this triggered? Okay, I'm going to remove those warnings for now. So they're ugly. So I'll explain this part when we get to optionals. All right. So what happens now when I run this? Watch. If I start typing here, you'll see that it start typing all of that. Now, when I hit the done key, it will call this action, primary key pressed. And then I will print welcome, whatever the text value is. So now if I click on done, it says welcome, Ali. All right. So that's the difference between text field showing and text field what? Primary key or text editing or primary key press. All right. That's the difference. The last thing in this book, not the last thing, there's gestures. And again, I'll cover gestures, maybe not today, but later. This is what we talked about. This is the primary key triggered, and this is that editing change actions. Next one talks about outlet and actions. When do we use outlet? When do we use actions? Actions when you want to trigger something on your screen. You want to do some action on it. Outlet, sometimes you just want to get values from the screen, or you want to display something on the screen. So we use outlet. Now, we've discussed this in the previous video. Remember when we talked about the UIKit basics, we talked about a label, displayed an image, and then we change the value. Same thing in here. So if I wanted to get the switch value, or if I want to get the slider value outside that function, then I create outlet. All right. So now in here, when you click on the button, for example, now you can access what's on the screen. You can access what's on the if the toggle is on or not, and you can access the value of the slider. I'll do that quickly, and then I promise you I'll be done. Okay. So what I'm going to do for this one and for the switch, I'm going to create outlet as well as action. The actions we already have. So let's create outlet for this. So this one is going to be an outlet. And let's go to the top of the class. So this one is going to be an outlet, and I usually do my outlet at the beginning. And I'm going to call this as switch. What happened here? Oh, because of the name. You see it added that for me. All right, so let's delete the outlet. Let me do that again, because switch is a keyword, right? I didn't like that. Okay, so let me click the create an action. So I'm going to say button switch, an outlet. So it's a button switch, and I'm going to create for an action. Notice it's an outlet here, not an action. And I'm going to call that button slider or control slider. All right. So from here, you simply right click and drag it. From here, right click and drag it and create select outlet instead of action. And the type of those outlet is automatically selected for you. So you simply click on connect. And now I can use those values. If I go to just go to my view controller class, I can use those values throughout my class. Same thing with the text field. You can get the value throughout your class. Why? Because I created outlet to those controls. So in the button, instead of just saying hello there, I can just say print the value, or the same thing that we have here. Where's that if statement? For example, if I have this if statement here, command copy, and I will put it in the button. And instead of sender here, what do I use? The name of the outlet. What is the name of the outlet for the switch? BTN switch. So here I can say BTN switch is on. So say welcome. And the button, because now I created an outlet. All right. Same thing with the slider. I can print the slider value in the button because I created an outlet for it. So if I say print, slider value is, and then bracket, and then here I will put BTN slider dot value. All right. So where does this happen? It happens in the button now. So now if I run it, watch what will happen. Every time I click on the button, it will get the button switch and displays student or not, and it will show you the slider value. So if I click on greeting, three things will happen. Hello there. First one, you are a student, and then the slider value is 1. Now if I change these and then turn this off, and then I click on this again, you'll see that again, hello there. We can't wait until you join us, and the slider value is this. Is that clear? Where do you use this? You use them in your next assignment, definitely. You need to use the text field, those controls, the sliders, all of this stuff, the labels, all of that stuff, all right? But you need to watch this video again, do it on your own, because a lot of mistake could happen when you're doing these connections, all right? We're done for the day, and we're sorry about this mishap with the screens.